Relative humidity, what does it mean in the home? And it affects everything that you guys do, from flooring, obviously what we do, cabinetry, trim, and we see some real issues with that, and there's some growing problems, especially with the last couple of years and the changes in the climate. So what I would like to talk about is some of the things that we are coming up against. Everybody these days are wanting to have these wider plank scrape floors, okay? They're wanting 5 inches and larger, and everybody likes the solid stuff because that's what Ohio's all about, bigger and better. And the problem we're running into, everybody's getting into wanting this wide plank, and it's causing a lot of problems. This time of year, what we experience is lack of humidity, okay? So with the lack of humidity, what you're gonna have, and we've seen this all through our lives, but everybody had 2 1/4 inch hardwood floors growing up and whatever, and you had small gaps in those planks. But it gets magnified the larger you go. All the problems get magnified with solid flooring the larger you go. So with this product, what you'll see is it's actually easier to show. If everybody can see, like in a product like this is pretty normal, and this is only a 3 1/4. This is a sample, it's not nailed down. But can everybody kind of see the gapping and what, it's pretty normal to see. And on some of these boards you see they're not even stained down there, so they're real obvious because it's, it's very, it's just the natural finish. So does anybody have like a credit card or anything like that? Mm-hmm. So you didn't fall for it. But anyways, everybody hates the credit card joints. They don't like, the ladies hate, when I talk to them about the toast crumbs in the kitchen and everything, it gets in there, you're not getting it out. Okay? So to combat this, well, this is the issue in the winter, okay? So, and then what we run into is also with extreme dry weather, if you're not properly doing your humidification, no floor or no product is safe, and you end up with this. Okay, this is actually an engineered floor. It's supposed to be better for these situations, but you will see this without if you don't have. If your customers are not aware, and that's the sheets we put down of the characteristics of hardwood, you guys are going to run into some major issues. If you go into a house and they don't run a whole house humidifier, and they're not aware that they're supposed to care for these products, or it's a house that they like to close up in the winter and keep it at 50 degrees, you could very well come back to this. And they're going to blame you because you didn't tell them, or they're going to call us because we sold it to them. And so the issue with this particular floor, and believe it or not, this happened in our showroom. We obviously don't run a humidifier in here. The lack of the humidity has caused this floor to just do what it wants. It just peel right up. Okay. So what you'll see, these actually happened over last winter. You'll see products like this. This one's not as obvious, but if I twist it in the light, you'll see the actual wood. These are more exotic woods. The dimensional stability of an engineered hardwood like these, it wants to keep the product still and not move. Well, these woods, they've dried out so much that they still ended up cracking because they ended up staying on, they tried to stay on the board, but they couldn't, at some point something had to give. So that's what happens in the winter. And then when we hit the springtime, we end up getting into the moisture. So then we got everybody that likes to leave their windows open. So then we run into that issue. So they call and they go, my floors look, and you can kind of see, this is not the best, but if everybody can kind of see, this product is cupping. But typically what it looks like, and everybody's seen it, if you've walked to anybody's house that's got a 5 inch or wider solid plank, it looks like this. Buckeye Lake when they have water. So the problem that we run into is that the customers aren't aware, and as contractors, they expect us to tell them everything. So my quick snippet for tonight is to explain to you If you go with solid planking, as a company anymore, we don't do 3 1/4, we do 3 1/4 inches wide by 3/4. That is the widest we go on an installation of solid products anymore. We won't do it. We've eaten enough floors over the years. People don't understand. You can tell them till you're blue in the face. We can give them this literature, but make sure if you're going to do that, that you make sure that they're aware. The bigger we go with the solid product, the more problems that we can have. We can do it, but you're going to have to sign off on this knowing that your house needs to be 35 to 45% relative humidity year round, okay? So the way we've combated that, for the most part, if you maintain that, everybody likes these wide planks. So we do it with an engineered product, because it's just like, you got a plywood core, so you got the dimensional cross graining to keep the product flat and stable year round. It limits the expansion and contraction of the boards, and you can go really as wide as you want, and it stays good. But you still need to have your humidity right, because if it gets absolutely too dry, there's still going to be something, it's going to probably come apart. So just like your trim does. I mean, you go in a house that's been locked up all winter, and you go in there and it's separating from the ceiling, the joists and everything like that. So with that, so 3 1/4 inch wide solid, you're generally okay, but it still will move. And I've seen 3 1/4 that's still, you get that humidity in there going over 55% or whatever, it will start like cupping. I don't care if it's 2 1/4 inches wide. So is there any questions on that? Because I know we've all seen it from time to time, and I've seen many different scenarios of it, but it always, if the floor's got massive gapping, it's lack of humidity. If it's got massive cupping, then there's too much. So, yes?
So if you have a house, let's say 10,000 square feet, and it's all hardwood, how many humidifiers do you have in here?
Oh, he just perfect lead in. Come on up. Well, here to talk about that tonight.
That was a perfect lead.
That was, I mean,
Wow.
that was fantastic. So tonight, I knew you were going to ask that question, thank you. So tonight, we invited Jim Starner with Starner Heating and Cooling, and in conjunction with just the floors, he's going to talk about everything that has to do with humidity in the home, and as a heating and cooling expert, what we can do to remedy some of the situations. So thank you very much. Jim, take it away.
All right. First of all, how many of you have a humidifier in your home? That's not a very high percentage. How about a dehumidifier? Once again, a pretty small percentage. The best way to control humidity level in your house in the wintertime is absolutely to add a humidifier. And Brandon mentioned earlier, you want to try to achieve that 35 to 45% constant humidity in the house. That'll keep things from moving. He mentioned the floors, trim molding. It all comes apart in the wintertime when it dries out too much. So you have a humidifier in the home. The only kind that I install are automatic humidifiers. None of the portable humidifiers that you have to constantly add water to. Makes it very, very inconvenient. This works in conjunction with your furnace and air conditioner system. You have a humidistat that you'll set at somewhere between 35 and 40%. And I want to quantify that percentage because every house is different. You can have 10 houses built in a row that are identical, but every one of them is going to be slightly different on how tight they are. And they're building houses tighter and tighter and tighter. So humidity level is very important. It's not just for the home. It's also for your comfort. Warm, moist air feels a lot more comfortable than warm, dry air. It's also for you personally, the dry, itchy skin, waking up in the morning with a really parched nose, mouth. That makes you a lot more susceptible to things like colds and flus and things like that, infections. So it's adding to the health of the home as well as the people who live in it. Now, you can control humidity in two different ways. If you have a house that actually is way too dry, you absolutely add a humidifier. These come in several different sizes. This just happens to be a humidifier for, say, a relatively small home, approximately 1,500 square feet and below. And I'll show you how this works here in a minute. So you want to keep that humidity level up, and mostly in the wintertime. But there are homes, even in the wintertime, that have too much humidity. Typically, it's because of the tightness of the homes, and you don't have enough fresh air coming in from outside. So not only does April Air make humidifiers, but they also make dehumidifiers. And they both install in conjunction with your heating and cooling system. And they're both automatic. So you're not constantly have to make adjustments, you're not constantly have to fill with water. You can add them onto your heating and cooling system, and it'll all work automatically. There's several different models out there. There's several different manufacturers. I particularly like the April Air. I've been dealing with them, oh gosh, over 40 years now. But very good products. Honeywell makes a very good one, very good one. There's some of these models that are self-adjusting. As the temperature goes down outside, you can't quite have as much humidity level inside the home. One of the features or things that are symptoms you'll see if you have too much humidity in the home in the wintertime is you'll start to see moisture condensing on the windows. That's bad, because that'll run down the windows, rot out your window seals, cause a lot of damage. There is an exception to that, though. You have 5 or 6 windows in a certain area of the home, and only one of them has moisture on the window. That window is bad. It's leaking, and that's why that moisture is there. It's not an indication that you have too much moisture in the home. So 35 to 45% in the wintertime, very critical. Now, we come to the summertime, we turn this humidifier off, then we go to dehumidification. Now, the number one dehumidification system in your home is your air conditioner. But let's say it's, for example, it's 75 degrees outside. We have 90% humidity. That sounds like Ohio, right? It feels uncomfortable in the house, even though the temperature is where you want it in the home. That's where a dehumidifier can come into play. You might be up there in the 75, 80% humidity inside the home at 75 degrees inside. Too much humidity. They make whole house dehumidifiers, once again, that work in conjunction with your heating and cooling system in the home. That's when you want to turn that on and get rid of the humidity. You can also add to your comfort in the home in the summertime in the fact that the lower the humidity, the more comfortable you're going to feel, especially in the summertime. It may even mean that your air conditioner won't have to run as long to do the proper job of dehumidification. How many of you have portable humidifiers or dehumidifiers in your home? Sherry and I talked about that a little while ago. Very inconvenient. A lot of times it's not taken care of properly because you've got to mess with it every day. These you don't have to mess with every day. Whole house humidifiers, you set it at the beginning of the wintertime, set it at 35 to 45%, forget it. It's going to come on and off automatically with your furnace. Dehumidifiers work in conjunction with your furnace, and if there's a call for dehumidification, which is the absence of moisture naturally, it will bring on a dehumidifier to get rid of the moisture. It will also turn your fan on your equipment to circulate that air through that system. Any questions so far? Yes? Pricing? That's a good question. An average installation of a whole house humidifier in about the $650 range. It's not a real expensive item. And it's really, really easy to maintain too. That's just an average. Now, somebody had a question a little bit earlier about a very large home. And what do you do? How many humidifiers are you going to need in that home?
How many?
That depends on what kind of humidifier you go with. This type humidifier is what we call a flow-through evaporative humidifier. We also have steam humidifiers, which can handle the larger homes like you're talking about. Part of it depends on how the house is laid out, how many systems you have in the home. In a large home like that, you may have to have one of these on each system. It's possible. But there's charts and there's things that we work with in this general area to come up with the proper sizing of the humidifier. This particular humidifier is one of the smaller ones out there. It will handle up to approximately 1,500 square feet on an average tightness home. And that's another thing to consider in humidification or dehumidification is how new is the home, what's the insulation factor, how tight is it? Because if we're dealing with a home that's built back in the 1880s, naturally that house is not very tight, okay? And controversially, if we have a house that's built in 2015, due to the new energy codes, it's going to be a very tight house. Tight houses are the hardest to control humidity levels in the homes. So that's the ones you want to watch the most. Hopefully that wasn't important.
That was Shar.
This is what we call a flow-through humidifier. Typically this mounts on the return air ductwork system of the home. The return air is the air where it's coming back to the furnace to be heated. This area right here is what we call our bypass area. We are actually pumping the hot air from the furnace through this pipe right here, and it has a damper on it as you open and close summer and winter. Water is entering here, going through a solenoid valve, going up this tube, and then trickling down through the evaporative panel. Any excess water then drains out the bottom. This is much, much different than older humidifiers where we had a constant reservoir of water. Not a good situation. This completely dries out when the unit shuts off. That way we don't have mold and mildew problems and all the other problems that we used to have in the older reservoir type humidifiers. These are very, very easy to maintain. It doesn't even take a screwdriver to take this apart. This water panel that you see right here, you want to replace annually. It's going to get a buildup of minerals, iron, that kind of thing that's in the water, calcium, especially calcium in our area. So this is the only thing that's replaced or maintained every year. It's a very inexpensive item. It's usually less than $25. So this is fully automatic. And almost all the newer style furnaces have the automatic hookup for the humidifier so that the humidifier can only come on in the heating mode. So in the chance that you forget to turn off your humidifier and summertime comes along, it's not going to come on. Okay. But the two things that you operate on this system, the humidistat, which you set, and then the damper here to open and close the warm air bypass that evaporates the water through the humidifier pad. And very, very easy to maintain. Yes,
Where do
sir?
you put the humidistat at typically if it means a larger house?
Good question. There's two locations that are common out there. One is up by the thermostat, which I don't like. I like to mount this humidistat on the return air ductwork system of the home, because this is then is going to sense it's going to sense a combination of all the rooms in the home instead of just one where the thermostat is. Because you might have warm and dry, you might have dry and moist areas in the home, bathrooms, kitchens, a little bit on the moist side, rest of the house dry. And if that thermostat's close to that kitchen, it may not operate properly. So I like to see this mounted on the return air duct so we've got a sense of a mixture of all of the air.
Still by the unit down in the basement or whatever.
Pardon me?
Down by the main unit.
Yeah, right down by the furnace. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And once again, remember on the return air duct, and I use some terminology I've been throwing around for some 40 years. That's just the air coming back in the ductwork for the furnace to heat and then deliver out the warm air pipes. So you want to mount this 2 locations by the thermostat, but preferably on the return air duct system so we've got a mixture of all the air in the home. Yes?
Forgive me if this is a silly question, but you said it drains out? Do we need a drain pan?
This portion right here, there's a little, we usually install a little clear plastic tube off of here that runs to the drain. Because when this unit shuts off, not all the water is going to be evaporated. So we need a place for that water to go, and we run that to a drain. Now Honeywell and April Air both have some new humidifiers out there that they call water-saving modules. There's actually a sensor that senses when this water panel is saturated with water, and it will actually turn the water off so that very, very little water comes out the drain.
But you're already gonna have a drain for your HVAC unit anyway.
Exactly. You got an air conditioning drain on every system out there. And a lot of the newer furnaces also have a drain. So we can just attach right into that drain. It's very easy. Yes, ma'am.
Is there a way for a homeowner to test to see what the humidity is in their home,
Existing in their home?
existing in their home?
Yeah, you can go to Lowe's or Home Depot or one of those places, and you can get like a combination barometer, humidifier, or humidity control.
Humidistat.
Humidistat. There we go. I couldn't spit that one out. Yeah, so those are available out there to the general public.
So you can test it to see if you're needing the product or not.
Exactly. Any other questions? Yes.
What if they're using like radiant heating? So what I understand with the radiant heating, there may or may not be a furnace, and then the air conditioning is done totally separate. So where would the humidifier be?
You can. They do make humidifiers for that situation. They're called power humidifiers. They're actually like a standalone unit with a fan, and the rest of the components are very similar to this. Yeah, that is available out there, so you can do that.
So on a large home, like I was talking about, 10,000 square feet plus, would you have multiple units of that then?
Yeah. About the maximum that any regular style humidifier can take care of is about 3,500 square feet. Any one humidifier. Now, if you go to a steam humidifier, they can handle a lot more square footage than that.
All right.
Okay. Steam humidifiers start to get pricey. So do dehumidifiers.
So it's 15,000 square feet at one. So we gotta take care of that.
You got to take care of that. But all these products that we're talking about, they are available mostly in the April Air or Honeywell brands. April Air probably makes one of the best dehumidifiers on the market out there. Dehumidification can be just as important as humidification. If you can't keep the air dry enough in the home in the summertime, spring, summer, fall, then you get to the things that are susceptible to you, like mold, mildew, musty smells. You can get rid of that now. You can definitely get rid of that. Yes.
Just what she was talking about, the radiant floor heating.
Yes.
Generally, you would have an air conditioner in your home. Can you hook it up to just the air conditioner and let the fan run?
That's correct. Any ducted system, you can install a regular, either a steam humidifier or a bypass humidifier like this one. Absolutely. As long as you have a ducted system with a fan. Yep, definitely can be done. Any other questions? Yes.
What would be the average cost of a dehumidifier system in addition to the, you talked about the humidifying system, but when you start talking about basement encapsulations and crawl space encapsulations, and you want to condition and move that air around that, what about a dehumidifier hooked into the system at that point to condition that air also?
That's correct. You can add. These control excess humidity dehumidifiers. That also installs with your HVAC system, your heating and cooling system, as long as it's a ducted system also. But these are also can be installed as non-ducted systems in a standalone system. Once again, still fully automatic, just have it have a drain somewhere and a place for power. But they do make these in a standalone application. There is a blower in them. I installed several in really unbelievably wet crawl spaces. so that we could dry those out. And it was just an unbelievable musty smell in the entire house until you did the dehumidifier. So on dehumidifiers, you have two ways to install these with your ducted system, or they can be installed as a standalone.
Do they have much air movement on those, or you still need to have the air movement of the HVAC system to keep the air moving in that system?
Not if it's installed as a standalone, like for a specific area like a crawl space or a basement, for example. If that's the only area of concern, you could do this, you could install this as a standalone. It has its own fan in it.
So we got some circulation.
So you got the air circulation, that's correct. And they're pretty quiet. They really are pretty quiet. Dehumidification is, to simplify it a little bit more, it's almost just like air conditioning without the cooling effect. Okay, we're just going to use it to, it has a compressor in it, it has a condenser fan motor, it has coils in it. It's much like an air conditioner. Similar to a window air conditioner in a way, but it's only for dehumidification. These work very, very well, yes.
No, basements are notorious for high humidity. Is it, if you don't do the rest of your house doing the basement, would that be the most important area to dehumidify?
It's the most important area, but you know, if it's really moist down in the basement, chances are it's still too moist upstairs too.
Mm-hmm.
And if you add this to your furnace and air conditioner, like is in a typical home anymore, it really does the entire house. Moisture always wants to travel from moist to dry. Okay, so if it's moist in your basement, it feels dry up there, it's still going to go that way. That's like when it's really cold outside and we have, let's say it's 20 degrees, very low humidity outside. We got the humidity in the inside from even cooking, taking showers, baths, those kind of things. That humidifier, that humidity that you put in the air from just that goes right outside. Or it can travel the other way. It can go from outside to inside. And it happens pretty quickly. It really does happen pretty quickly. But we do have the tools and the mechanisms now to take care of that problem. And the nice part about it is they're automatic. Once you set them, you forget them. There is minimal maintenance to anything that you install that's mechanical, but their devices are very, very easy to take care of. Did I answer a lot of questions out there? Okay. Flow-through humidifier, that's probably 90% of the installations out there. When we get into steam humidification, it's for just certain applications like the large home you're talking about. Dehumidifiers, I've only installed them in really severe situations. I'll give you an example of that. I had a client in Canal Winchester. This house had been sitting there for almost 80 years. The basement was never wet, it was always dry. They built a community a block over. It changed the water table in that area completely. The people ended up having a very moist, wet basement after that was done. And the only way to take care of it, unless you went outside of the house, dug the perimeter up, put drainage tile around it, you know, got rid of the water that way, was to put a dehumidifier in. And it was a whole lot less expensive to install a dehumidifier than go that route for those people. So that was kind of like the severe case of what can happen, even on an existing home that's been out there a long time.
Okay.
Dehumidifiers, average cost, you're up there in the $3,500, $4,000.
Whoa.
They're not cheap, but they do the job. They really do the job. There's another device out there. Yeah, go ahead.
So so being a smart, a diligent person working with clients, is it smart for us to recommend both the dehumidifier and the humidifier? Like when we're selling hardwood floors, you know, to educate our clients, should we be telling them they need to do both? Because I always tell them they have to have a humidifier, but, you know, I've never told them they have to have a dehumidifier.
If you want to absolutely control the humidity level in the house year-round, you need to do both.